And we had just ended last time with the truth of the doctor. We are going to continue 5/14, and let's go. I was informed of my target's infiltration the same way I was given the Guardian. That was strange, but it was clearly happened, so I had no choice but to accept it. In a way, it was something I predicted. However, what happened this morning certainly wasn't. Oh? Yeah? No one had died last night. The people in the dining hall were far more cheerful than yesterday morning. It was obvious why not one of their neighbors had died. The betrayal they've been warned about ended up not happening at all. Some were probably even beginning to hope that the traitor, the wolves, didn't exist at all. Yasu Fujiyashi, see? No one's here dumb enough to play along with something that stupid. Takumi-san, who put the unity of the Yasumizu above all else, was especially cheerful. Well, maybe you're right. Yasunaga-kun made a vague smile. It seemed like he was afraid to kill the good vibes here. Konzo, however, was probably just holding back from doing that. Kiyonosuke-shi looked like he was on the verge of killing the mood with some of his criticism. However, he held his tongue, probably not out of consideration for Tei-san and Rikako-san, who were crying in relief. Hey, what? Yoshitsugu-kun, who was washing the dishes with me, called out to me with a stern voice. What the hell, nothing happened. What do you mean, nothing? We have something pretty amazing going on here. Huh? You'll know during the feast. That's got soap all over it. Redo. Shut up.
Yoshi-kunがお手伝いか。もう何年も見てなかった光景だね。
You shut up too. Don't cheer me on when you traced on a plate with your fingers. Knock it off.
あ、バレた？でも残念。指じゃなくて唇でした。関節キスは約束だぞ。
Yuck.
ひどい。
知恵ねえ、私も引くわ。外で一体何勉強してきてるの？
知恵ねえのオリジナルだから。
まったく知恵ねえは不潔だな。
What the hell are you doing, Kumoshida?
僕も手伝いだ。レロレロン。
Don't clean with your tongue.
俺も。
Stop. There's zero demands for that. The dining hall was noisy. Haru even screamed a little.
また見てくる。
With those words, Konzo left. So we ended up spending a uneventful morning in the dining hall together. I wasn't the only one absently mindedly watching the clock. I wonder if she seen anything on her stomach when she checked. It felt like she was waiting for the feast to start, which made it seem like she had something to declare. Okay. When Konzo returned and declared the start of the feast, I felt like there would be trouble. No one was against it, and when he said, but it turned out that the trouble was just delayed. Don't you think it's enough, old man? Takumi-san said that instead of drinking from the cup. What? Why keep this up? The wolves won't want to kill the humans. Of course he would be the one to suggest that. Just how naive are you? You don't understand the situation at all. What are you getting at? No one died simply because the wolves went for the one who was protected by the spider. That was exactly it. it was best to assume that those with the wolf's blessings would accept it and begin the murders. The spider couldn't protect themselves, meaning that they picked one out of 14 people. 1/14 is about 7%. I believe we should be thankful for our good fortune and continue using the feast to dispose of the wolves. So you think the chance that the wolves refuse their job is lower than 7? Indeed, I believe it to be 0%. You really do know something, don't you? What's going on here? I don't know. Then why are you so certain? I merely believe we should be realistic about our situation. Listen, humans are generally peaceful creatures. So you believe that humans are instinctively good? I don't know much about this stuff, but peace is kept up because it's dangerous to ruin it. As long as it is protected, most people are safe. You know how no one got hanged yesterday? We had wolves with us, right? How did it turn out that way? You're being too optimistic. We simply failed to get the correct distribution of the votes.
おっちゃんを守ろうとして票を散らしたのかもしれないしね。
Everyone stared at Mochi in surprise. What do you mean?
いや、僕とやっすんと香りママがおっちゃんに入れた後、誰も入れなかったじゃん。あと1票くらいは入りそうなもんなのに入んなかったよね。となると、狼がかばい合ったのかもしれないじゃん。
じゃあそれより下に狼が。
待ってよモッチ、私が狼だって言うの？
いやいや、僕は単におっちゃんに突っかかりたかっただけだ。ごめん。
Mochi had reached the same conclusion I had. I couldn't tell if he was that sharp or it was just so simple anyone could figure it out. I appreciate it if you didn't take Chika Mochi's casual remarks seriously, but that was a possibility. We can't be too optimistic. So what? You're gonna hang someone even though no one died?
もう死んでるって言ってるでしょ。
Mimiya-san's sudden shouts attracted everyone's
何
attention.
なの？あなたの中では橋本さんは人間扱いじゃないの？
Shut up. What happened to him is horrible, but it's not like that was done by one of us.
どうしてそう言い切れるのよ。
Because the wolf's killings and the corruption are two different things.
匠兄ちゃん、ちょっといい？
What is it?
私もさ、人を殺したいなんて思ってないけど、でもちょっと心配はあるんだよ。神内様の掟に従う限り、私たちが狼に対抗するには宴でくくるしかないって。その手段を放棄してしまったら、私たち全滅するしかないんじゃないか。
Hey, I just...
だからその手段を放棄させようとする人こそが狼だって、そう思い出す人が出てくるかもしれないって。
Takumi-san looked around and noticed the chill in the air room about him. He noticed that a certain worry had began mixing with a certain
感動
suspicion.
じいちゃん、
今日はくくる。さもなくば狼の味方よ。
ちえみも殺したくないんだけど。
雨が匠は甘すぎる。
ほら、こういう向きもあるってこと。
Then what are we supposed to do? We didn't decide who to hang yesterday. You think that's gonna change? Not everything's the same. The outsider lady and the lunatic probably got something to say. That's true. Let's hear them out. If everyone is against killing in spite of what they say, there'd be nothing left for us to do, right, Konso?
そんなことは起きん。
Alright, speak up, you two. We won't get anywhere otherwise.
私が話します。私は蛇のカゴ者だった。
Really? You looked and saw the mark?
ええ、そうよ。だからきちんと蛇のカゴで一人の正体を調べたわよ。
There was no way. But isn't that dangerous to reveal now? The snake is extremely important.
それを踏まえても開示するべき結果が得られたので話してるんですよ。山脇多江さんは狼よ。
The mood of the feast suddenly did a complete 180.
こやつは狼よ。
あんたが狼だって言ってるのよ、こっちは。
They screamed and they were about to charge at each other. The others had to hold them back. Beichan, stop. No one's suspecting
マリ
you.
アさんやめてよ。これじゃ助かるものも助からない。
A strange fever filled the small hall. I was getting really uncomfortable here. Do we have any other claiming to be the snake?
何を言うのよ。
Please don't shout. If you really are the snake, then keep your cool. The lack of another snake is one of the conditions for us to believe you are the real one. Again, do we have any other snakes? What was my best option here? Since I was the real snake, she was definitely a fake who was clearly talking with ill intent. That meant I had to out myself. Otherwise, she would take control of the situation. That was the right thing to do. The right way to go about it. I knew that well. But I couldn't help but feel I was in an extremely difficult situation. Now wasn't the time to rely on baseless intuition. If I kept my silence now and tried to come out as a snake later, I couldn't expect my words to hold much weight. It was okay given the situation. I was sure I could get people to believe in me. I'm sorry. At the moment, I became the target of everyone's attention. I felt like they were boring holes in me. I am the snake.
なんですって。
So now Fuchs has declared himself to be the snake. Anyone else? Do you really think a third person will step up? Honestly, no. But better safe than sorry. Anyone else? I was expecting no one stepped up.
あなたが狼ね。みんなわかってる？今狼が2人も明らかになってるのよ。
Miyama-san's outburst was also expected. She spent some time ranting afterward, but piped down after Kanzo told her to shut her mouth. Is it safe to assume that one of them is telling the truth? I believe so. Incidentally, who did the investigate with the power of the snake? Fushiyashi. Nasato-san, he's human. While I am indeed a human, that isn't enough to prove my innocence.
狼なら本当のことも言える。
That is true, but the reception to my claim was rather dicey. There were those who believed me and those who doubted me from the start and still did. It didn't feel like I changed anyone's
どう
mind.
するのよこれ。
Now's not the time for prism. We still have enough to go off of to make a decision. So for the
記者
time
と
being.
兄ちゃんとタエバーを順番にくくる。
Wait, what? A dumbfounded silence dominated the hall for a few seconds as everyone struggled to process what he said. Old man, what are you thinking?
狼はくくらねばな。
Hold on a minute. Evidence aside, it's obvious who the most suspicious one
人
here
と
is,
なり
right?
で判じるとやられる。
He wasn't exactly wrong. On the other hand, my nature was suspicious, so it felt like there was a strong, unbiased doubt towards me. It wasn't fair to base it on double standards, but the people of Yasumizu would just look at me the same way as Mimiya-san if I complained about that. Let me ask you something, Kanzo. Your logic is based around hanging anyone suspicious, not simply hanging those who claim to have a guardian, right? Otherwise, no one would dare claim to have a guardian after this. If they would prove themselves clean, there wouldn't be a need to hang them, right?
じゃが今は
Exactly. Right now, I believe all of us are suspicious, so you shouldn't be jumping to hang the three of us just yet. I agree. I believe that Fushisashi-san and Mimiya-san should try using their guardians again and again. Yasunaga-kun sure was reliable. He jumped to the conclusion I was going to make ahead of time and told everyone increasingly its credibility more than I could have. Kanzo-san didn't look satisfied, but it didn't seem he could find solid grounds to argue. So, what are we supposed to do, Aniki? Should we vote on the old hag? Quite the opposite. At any rate, since we'll put Fushiashi and Mimiya aside for now, we have to vote for someone else. Someone I believe we should all decide on the one of the investigation's targets. I consider that too. I believe voting for someone has more merit. I see, you're saying we should take a vote based on everyone's logic, not on a vote based on those who may be covering for one another. Exactly. I'll put another way, so the rest of you understand easier. Starting tomorrow, Fushiyashi-san and Mimiya will investigate their own targets and announce their results. Eventually, they should reach a mutual contradictory outcome. When that time comes, we can decide which one of them to hang. For example, if Tei really is human, she knows that Mimiya-san is lying, and thus we'll know she's right to vote for her.
そうよ。私は分かっておる。
But even if Teiba is a wolf, Mimiya-san has already gone out of her way to become her enemy, so Teiba will have to vote against her regardless. That way, Mimiya-san can restrict her actions. She won't be able to sway the humans' vote in any way. When you take that into account, Teiba's actions are already restricted, so there's no need for us to rush now. I mean, it's more important to prioritize restricting more people's actions in the same way. Right. Eventually, once we determine whether Fushiyashi or Mimiya-san is lying, we'll review all of the results up until then. And if we need to, we'll just hang them afterwards.
今の説明で分かったもんはおるか。
Yes.
私もわかっ
このまま手がかりが増えるのを待つってことですよね。
I'm against hanging, but if that's what we gotta do, then I want to go with Yasu's
そう
plan.
ですね。私も。
But if we manage to eliminate a wolf early on, the rest will feel psychologically cornered and be more likely to slip up. At the very least, the fact that this blockhead is complaining means that this is a good idea. I wanted to point out how rude that was, but chose to keep quiet after realizing I was in a position to speak my mind.
もう票を取れ。
Gonzo-san probably hasn't changed his mind, but in fact he was letting the vote start. Meant he wasn't denying that going with Yasunaga-kan was logical. He probably acknowledged that the plan made a certain amount of sense too. He was just too proud to admit it. It wasn't just the players' power relationship, rationality, validity of their actions that held influence here. It was also their personalities. In retrospect, politics were a game, and the Feast of the Yomi Bird was politics, meaning that Feast was a game of sorts. Anyway, I wouldn't be gathering any votes for this round, and neither would Mimiya-san. No, wait. Wasn't this bad? Does anyone not want to vote? Takumi-san raised his own hand. Chimi hesitated, but didn't go for it. In the end, leaving him all alone. Fine, that's enough.
上座からくくるもんを言ってけ。
The voting began with no regard for my concerns.
お前。
Me again? What a messed up old timer.
わしは記者の女に入れる。
As expected, he voted for the most suspicious one here.
私はやっぱりあんたに入れる。
ええ、どうぞご勝手に。
Miya-san seemed to have regained some of her cool. Though she already had 2 votes, she probably could tell that she wouldn't get much more after this.
ムロ様。どうか。
You're fishy too, but you're trying to cover for her makes you even fishier. If Meiko got one more vote, perhaps it would be best to try to lead things in another direction. After all, I knew she was the only one reliable.
私はリカ子さん。
More prejudice against the village heads. If this turns out to be the undoing of the people Yatsumi, don't say I didn't warn you.
野里様。
I still think that Fushidashi is suspicious, but it's true I want more proof first, so that in mind, I'll vote for Chimi.
なんで私が
Because you don't seem to be on anyone's side. First you say we shouldn't hang anyone, then you suddenly, for the sake of Takumi-san.
そうですね。私は当たり前に迷ってるつもりだったけど、みんなもう当たり前に殺す。やっぱ嫌いですわ、こんな狂った村。
Chimi Coppola filled the hall with this awkward silence. This was proof that there were some people out there who knew this couldn't exactly deny what she said. Just as I was wondering how things came to this. I'm filing for Utsumatsu-san. As soon as for why, it's because of the big act she put on yesterday. I believe she was trying to copy Chini, without even thinking, though, and failed. I'd vote for her just because you found that
いいの
unnatural.
です。
No, it isn't. You should value your own life a little more.
いいではないですか。命くらい
So if I have a
Musaki ni-
chance,
放り出せるものが欲しいのです。
りっちゃんかっけー。僕はそこまでは言えないや。さて僕の番だけど、おっちゃん出番だよ。かっこよく飛んでくれい。
what that is that supposed to mean? The vote was all over the place. Currently, Mimi Yao-san, Reikako were sitting at the top, 2 votes, while Meiko, Chimi, Kiyonosuke, and I had 1 vote. And when it came to me, it was the youth's turn to vote. Ain't doing this, like Komoshida said, or none, but I'm voting for no Sato blockhead. We don't need no village heads here.
私はそこまで言わないけど、投票されたからには逆に入れられても文句はいい。というわけで、ちえみの1票もどうぞ。
Why you...
私も野里さんでいい。あなたはもういらない。
With a surge for 4 consecutive votes for Kiyonosuke, there were just 4 left, including me.
私に
So you're sticking to that, are you? You do realize it's unlikely you'll die today.
それでも野里様が
Rikako, no, but that doesn't mean you should die in my stead.
おじいちゃん
あ
牧島様は狼ではないわよ。
じゃあおじいちゃん
あ
おじいちゃん
What was up with this vote? Kiyonosuke had 4 votes. My options were to either co-assign with Kiyonosuke to his fate or throw Rikako into danger, or vote for someone else entirely and leave Mimiya-san deal with that dilemma. In other words, leaving it up to a confirmed liar. No, I couldn't. I was confident that I had intercepted Rikako's actions correctly, so I vote for Kiyonosuke no Sato-san. I'm sorry I don't believe you're a wolf, it's just... Mimiya-san was the only one with 2 votes. Even if I voted for her, there was no way she'd vote for herself, so trying to put Kiyonosuke against her would be pointless. However, I knew telling him that wouldn't do any good. I can't afford to lose Rikako-san. I knew those words were probably the last thing he wanted to hear. Still, I couldn't let that excuse, the reason, go unsaid. Not what he could understand. I see. This made 5 votes. Morally, everyone understood it was the humans who deserved to survive, not the wolves. But in the end, Kiyonosuke Shi had been unable to prove his life, held more meaning than a wolf, who revealed useful information while still alive. I vote for
一応
Usumatsu.
私は植松さんに理由は行動が不自然だから。
縄持ってこい。
Shinai guardians are. We passed through the mist and walked towards the guardian graveyard. I prepared the feast, and when the evening mist arrived, everyone was singing prayers to Shinai. Shinai's guardians are... I couldn't tell who had started it, or when they did. 8. Depths of the dam you bought me, Beto, is the mandate. The sobbing mixed with the mixed singing made it seem like an old funeral. Painfully, slowly, we walked through the path leading to the cliff next to Sanranaga. I was already used to this thanks to all the cleanups. 7. The corrupt Yomibito rise to oppose the mountains. Before I knew it, even Mimiya-san and I had joined the singing, creating a perfect unity in the group. Eventually, we reached our destination. It was downhill beyond the trees, wet with dew, in a grass field covered in stones marking the lives of those who used to live here. Strangely enough, the aged pine tree right at the end could be seen easily. As we stopped, so did the song Emotion. There's nothing to forgive. He gave me a glance. You have to protect Rikako-san. That was all he said. I understand. I didn't actually want to say that. I didn't sound like he simply meant the protector for the rest of the feast when he said, the survivors had the obligation to honor the dead's last wishes. Yes, you have to push my back has been a long cherished ambition of mine. I was not. And then he let a horrifying death wail. Afterwards, we all returned to the dining hall where Kori-san and I served a light lunch while the time passed by. Everyone tried to act as normal as possible. They tried to convince themselves that Kiyonosuke shouldn't have been in Yasumi Zoo in the first place, so his absence was only natural. However, it was clear that they felt guilty for committing murder, killing someone no one liked, and talking as though none of it had ever happened was a horrible group mentality. But it was the truth. At the Feast of the Yomi Purge, it was killed or be killed, and unfortunately it was the next to impossible to finish the feast without wasting a life. I chatted away with the others, with those thoughts in my mind, as a certain concern ate at me. As much as I felt bad about it, I didn't kill Kiyonosuke. Had I made the wrong move in the end? Hadn't I let someone who should have been purged live so I could save myself? No, that didn't mean that this was a failure. There was a high chance my fears were unfounded. I was overthinking things. I knew I was, but for some reason, I felt the presence of the beast. I couldn't help but feel that way.
さあ、なんでとかは僕にはわからん。けど、匠兄が蛇だって言ったとき、嫌な感じがしたんだ。今、狼様が笑ったなーって。
I felt like now I understood that feeling. Had I fallen right into their trap? That worry plagued me all the way through the dinner and bedtime. If Mimiya-san's false declaration was a suicide attack meant to weed out the real snake, then there was a chance she'd be coming for me despite knowing she'd be the prime suspect for sure the next day. In that case, which of the two snakes would be the spider protect? Right now, there were two self-proclaimed snakes. Should I have tried to crush Haisako Mimiya, even if it meant getting a little too desperate, being suspected by the others as a result? No, it was okay. If I was right about Miko being the spider, and Rikako-san controlling her, then Rikako would surely protect me. If it was between Mimiya-san and I, she'd definitely choose me. Those thoughts bounced back and forth from lunch, all the way until I drowsily wrote someone's name down and put it under my pillow. And then I lost consciousness. In the end, I never woke up. Guess that figures. After all, only the spiders themselves knew what they were thinking. The wolves must aimed their claws at me, taking the risk that the spider hadn't chose me. They won their bet, so that was that. I couldn't even tell if that's what I was thought when I died. It was all so vague. And I lay there in comatose slumber, and it was there my life met. It and faded into the mist that all covered it all. Game over. Yo, I got the 13th bad ending. No, I don't want to watch the quarter hint. Ah.